Welcome to a chapter a day. Most people don't lose opportunities because they lack intelligence. They lose them because they talk too much. They explain. They justify. They ramble. And every extra word quietly drains their authority. Here's the truth no one told you. Powerful people don't speak more. They speak cleaner. When a CEO talks, your nervous system relaxes. When a leader speaks, you lean in. When someone with authority opens their mouth, your brain says, listen. Not because they're louder, not because they're smarter, but because their words land with precision. This audiobook will change how you speak forever. You're about to learn the 3-2-1 speaking trick, a simple mental structure that eliminates rambling, sharpens your presence, and makes people instinctively trust you before you finish your sentence. This is not about sounding fancy. This is not about memorizing scripts. This is about controlling the emotional signal your voice sends before logic even arrives. Because people don't respond to what you say. They respond to how safe, clear, and certain you sound. By the end of this audiobook, you'll stop over-explaining. You'll stop losing power mid-sentence. You'll start speaking like someone whose words matter. This isn't communication training. This is identity training. If you're ready to sound grounded, decisive, and calm, if you're ready to stop leaking authority, then listen carefully. Because every sentence you speak after today either raises your status or lowers it. And starting now, you choose. Chapter 1. Rambling is not a speaking problem. It's a status leak. Let's start with a truth that might sting a little. Rambling has nothing to do with intelligence. It has nothing to do with vocabulary. It has nothing to do with how much you know. Rambling is a status leak. And status leaks are invisible, but they are felt immediately. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. Before anyone processes your words, their nervous system is already deciding. Is this person grounded? Is this person certain? Is this person worth listening to? People don't respond to what you say. They respond to the emotional signal you send before the words even happen. And rambling sends one signal very clearly. Uncertainty. Uncertainty is contagious. When you ramble, you don't just lose your listener's attention. You transfer your internal chaos into their body. Their shoulders tense. Their mind starts wandering. Their respect quietly drops. Not because you're wrong, but because you sound unsure. This is where most people get confused. They think, if I just explain better, they'll understand. They think, if I add more detail, I'll sound smarter. They think, if I clarify everything, they'll finally get it. But here's the brutal reality. More words do not create more authority. More words usually destroy it. Because authority is not built on information. Authority is built on emotional certainty. And every unnecessary sentence is a withdrawal from your status account. Uncertainty is contagious. Now let's talk about something you've probably seen or lived. Picture a meeting. There's a room full of professionals. Sharp people, educated people, capable people. One person speaks for 2 minutes. Clear, calm, direct. Then another person speaks for 5 minutes. Their ideas are good. Their logic is solid. But they keep going. They circle. They qualify. They explain the explanation. And something strange happens. The room stops listening. Phones come out. Eyes glaze over. Energy drops, not because the idea was bad, but because the signal was weak. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. When you ramble, you turn the dial toward confusion. When you ramble, you turn the dial toward fatigue. When you ramble, you turn the dial toward disengagement. And here's the painful part. Highly competent people are ignored every single day. Not because they lack value, but because they leak it through their voice. Uncertainty is contagious. Let's be very precise here. Rambling is not confidence versus insecurity. That's too shallow. It's not about confidence. It's about discipline. It's not about sounding bold. It's about sounding contained. Powerful speakers are not emotional fireworks. They are emotional anchors. They don't flood the room. They settle it. And settling the room starts by removing verbal noise. Noise is anything that does not move the message forward. Noise is anything that exists to protect your ego. Noise is anything that tries to convince instead of declare. People don't respond to what you say. They respond to the emotional signal you send before the words even happen. Now let's go deeper. Why do people ramble? They ramble because they're thinking while speaking. They ramble because they're afraid of being misunderstood. They ramble because silence feels unsafe. Silence feels like exposure. Silence feels like judgment. Silence feels like loss of control. So they fill it. They fill it with qualifiers. They fill it with backstory. They fill it with unnecessary context. But here's what leaders understand. Silence does not weaken your authority. Silence reveals it. When you keep talking, you signal, I'm not sure this landed. I'm not sure you trust me. I'm not sure I trust myself. Uncertainty is contagious. And again, this has nothing to do with your intelligence. Some of the smartest people on earth ramble. Some of the most average thinkers sound powerful. Why? Because clarity is not an IQ trait. Clarity is a behavioral discipline. And discipline always beats talent. Let's lock this in. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. If your voice wanders, their attention wanders. If your voice is tense, their body tightens. If your voice is scattered, their trust dissolves. This is why rambling is not neutral. It is actively costing you influence. Now let's talk about stories, because stories stick. Stories stick 22 times more than facts. I once coached a senior analyst. Brilliant mind, deep expertise. But every time she spoke, she disappeared. Not physically, energetically. She would start strong, then explain, then re-explain, then apologize for explaining. By the time she finished, the room had already moved on. When we stripped her speech down, when we removed the noise, something incredible happened. Same ideas, same intelligence, completely different reaction. People leaned in. People nodded. People repeated her points later as if they were obvious truths. Nothing changed except one thing. The uncertainty was gone. Uncertainty is contagious. So is certainty. This is the reframe that changes everything. The goal is not to sound impressive. The goal is to sound settled. The goal is not to dominate the room. The goal is to stabilize it. And stabilization comes from containment. Short sentences, clear intent, clean endings. It's not about confidence. It's about discipline. It's not about being louder. It's about being cleaner. Now here's your first behavioral instruction. Starting today, notice this urge. The urge to add just one more sentence. That urge is not intuition. It's fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of not being enough. Fear of silence. Your job is not to eliminate the fear. Your job is to not obey it. Every time you stop yourself from rambling, you reclaim status. Every time you end a sentence cleanly, you train your nervous system to tolerate authority. This is identity work. Because the person who rambles is asking for permission, and the person who speaks cleanly is assuming it. People don't respond to what you say. They respond to the emotional signal you send before the words even happen. So let's anchor this chapter. Rambling is not a speaking problem. It's a status leak. It leaks certainty. It leaks trust. It leaks authority. And the fix is not confidence. The fix is structure. Because structure removes uncertainty, and uncertainty is contagious. You now understand the disease. Next, we install the cure. Because once you stop leaking status, the next step is learning how powerful people decide before they speak. You've seen the problem. Now let's talk about the moment that changes everything. The moment before the first word leaves your mouth. Chapter 2. People decide how much to respect you before you finish your first sentence. There is a moment that decides everything. It happens before your idea is evaluated, before your logic is considered, before your intelligence is measured. It happens in the first 7 seconds. And in those 7 seconds, people don't ask, "Is this person smart?" They ask something much more primal. "Is this person safe to follow? Is this person certain? Is this person grounded?" Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. And in the first 7 seconds, that remote is already being used. People don't respond to what you say. They respond to the emotional signal you send before the words even happen. This is why so many capable people lose the room instantly. They start speaking too fast. They start speaking too soon. They start speaking before they've arrived. And the body of the listener feels it. Tone first. Words second. Let's lock that in. Tone first. Words second. The nervous system does not wait for meaning. It scans for stability. And instability is loud. Now think about the most authoritative people you've ever seen speak. CEOs, judges, military leaders, seasoned executives. Notice something? They don't rush. They don't fill the air immediately. They don't compete with silence. They pause. That pause is not empty. That pause is loaded. Because silence, when used correctly, creates gravity. Gravity pulls attention inward. Gravity slows the room down. Gravity signals control. When an executive pauses before speaking, they're not hesitating. They're claiming the floor. They're telling every nervous system in the room, "I'm here. I'm settled. You can relax." Tone first. Words second. Most people do the opposite. They speak to relieve their own tension. They speak to escape silence. They speak to prove value. And the moment they do, their authority collapses inward. Uncertainty is contagious. Let's be precise. Authority is not created by what you say first. Authority is created by how you begin. Your opening is not a warm-up. Your opening is the verdict. By the time you reach your conclusion, the room has already decided who you are. This is why your opening structure matters more than your conclusion. You can end strong and still lose respect. If you begin scattered, you can make a brilliant point and still be ignored. If your tone arrives shaky, tone first, words second. Now let's talk about what actually happens in the listener's body. Stories stick 22 times more than facts. But before a story can stick, the body must feel safe enough to listen. If your opening is rushed, the listener's nervous system stays alert. If your opening is chaotic, their attention splinters. If your opening is over-explained, they disengage because their body thinks, "This is going to cost energy." And the brain avoids energy loss at all costs. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. So the first 7 seconds are not about content. They're about containment. Containment sounds like this: slower pace, lower tone, clean entry, no verbal warm-up, no throat-clearing sentences, no so basically energy. Those phrases are tells. They tell the room you haven't landed yet. Tone first, words second. Let's look at a real example. 2 people are asked the same question in a meeting. Person A starts immediately. "Yeah, so I think there are a few things to consider here." And basically what we're seeing is, before the idea even arrives, the room is gone. Person B pauses. 1 beat, 2 beats, then speaks. There are 3 factors that matter here. Same intelligence, different opening, completely different authority. Why? Because person B's pause told the room, "I've already organized this." And organization signals leadership. Uncertainty is contagious. So is certainty. Now let's dismantle a myth. People think authority comes from confidence. Confidence is unreliable. Confidence rises and falls with mood. Confidence depends on outcomes. Authority comes from structure. Structure creates predictability. Predictability creates safety. Safety creates attention. It's not about confidence. It's about discipline. The discipline to slow down. The discipline to pause. The discipline to start clean. Tone first. Words second. Here's the behavioral shift. Before you speak, you must arrive. Arriving means your breath slows. Arriving means your body settles. Arriving means you decide what matters. Most people speak while arriving. Leaders arrive before speaking. That's the difference. And the room feels it instantly. Your opening sentence is not information. It's a signal of certainty, a signal of chaos, a signal of control. People don't respond to what you say. They respond to the emotional signal you send before the words even happen. Now let's talk about conclusions, because this is where people waste energy. Most speakers obsess over endings. They think, if I land it well, they'll respect me. They think, if I close strong, I'll win them over. But by the time you're closing, the decision has already been made. Your conclusion can reinforce authority, but it cannot create it. Authority is front-loaded. That's why executives invest everything in the opening moment. They know this truth. If you open grounded, people forgive imperfect endings. If you open shaky, no ending can save you. Tone first. Words second. This is why rambling at the beginning is so costly. You haven't earned attention yet. You haven't stabilized the room yet. And instead of claiming space, you start leaking it. Uncertainty is contagious. Now here's your second behavioral instruction. Before every important sentence, do this. Pause. Breathe. Decide your first line. Not 5 lines. 1. Your opening line should feel inevitable. Not discovered. Not exploratory. Inevitable. This trains your nervous system to lead with certainty. And certainty is felt, not argued. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. If you rush the opening, you hand the remote away. If you pause and settle, you take control of the room without force. This is quiet power. This is why leaders feel calm. They are not improvising their authority. They are installing it. Tone first. Words second. Let's anchor this chapter. People decide how much to respect you before you finish your first sentence. Not because they're shallow, because they're human. The nervous system always leads. Logic follows. Your job is not to impress. Your job is to stabilize. And stabilization begins in the first 7 seconds. You now understand why beginnings matter more than endings. Next, we go even deeper. Because once you control the opening moment, you must understand why the brain craves structure and how rambling triggers stress at a biological level. You've learned how respect is decided. Now let's talk about how the brain reacts to chaos and why clarity equals safety. Chapter 3. The brain loves structure. Rambling triggers stress. Let's get one thing clear right now. The human brain is not neutral. It is not patient, and it is not generous. The brain is a threat detection machine. Every second, without your permission, it is scanning for one thing: order or chaos. Because order means safety, and chaos means danger. Clarity equals safety. Say it again. Clarity equals safety. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. And when you speak without structure, you are pressing the stress button in the listener's body. People don't respond to what you say. They respond to the emotional signal you send before the words even happen. And the strongest emotional signal of all is this question: do I understand where this is going? If the brain cannot answer that question quickly, it panics quietly. Not consciously, biologically. The shoulders tighten. Breathing becomes shallow. Attention fractures. Not because the listener is rude, Because the brain is conserving energy. Chaos costs energy. Structure saves it. Clarity equals safety. Now here's the part most people miss. When you ramble, the listener's brain has to work. It has to sort. It has to filter. It has to predict where you might land. And the brain hates unnecessary work. There's a term for this: cognitive load. Cognitive load is the amount of mental effort required to process information. The higher the load, the lower the trust. Let that sink in. Long explanations do not make you sound thorough. They make you sound expensive. Expensive in energy. Expensive in attention. Expensive in patience. And when something feels expensive, the brain pulls away. Uncertainty is contagious. So is exhaustion. Clarity equals safety. This is why rambling doesn't just bore people. It stresses them, because their brain is asking, where is this going? How much longer will this take? What am I supposed to remember? And when those questions go unanswered, respect erodes. Not emotionally, physiologically. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. Now let's talk about trust. Trust is not built through detail. Trust is built through predictability. When the listener senses structure, they relax. When they sense wandering, they guard. This is why executives sound simple. This is why leaders repeat themselves. This is why powerful speakers use frames. They are not dumbing things down. They are protecting the listener's nervous system. Clarity equals safety. Stories stick 22 times more than facts. But even stories need structure. A story without direction feels like rambling. A story with a clear arc feels grounding. Because the brain loves knowing. Beginning, middle, end. When you remove structure, you remove safety. Now let's make this personal. Think about the last time someone explained something to you, and you felt tired halfway through. They weren't wrong. They weren't stupid. They weren't unprepared. They were unstructured, and your brain quietly checked out to protect itself. That's not disrespect. That's survival. Clarity equals safety. Now flip it. Think about someone who explains complex ideas, but makes them feel effortless. You trust them instantly, not because they know more, but because they organize more. Organization is leadership. Rambling is abdication. Uncertainty is contagious. Here's the brutal truth. When you speak without structure, you force the listener to lead. They have to decide what matters. They have to decide what to ignore. They have to decide when you're done. And when the listener is leading, you are not. Authority collapses the moment. You outsource structure. Your job as a speaker is not to download your thoughts. Your job is to carry the load. Clarity equals safety. Now let's dismantle another myth. People think rambling shows passion. It doesn't. Passion without structure feels unstable. It feels unsafe. Contained passion feels powerful. Uncontained passion feels volatile. And the nervous system always chooses safety. People don't respond to what you say. They respond to the emotional signal you send before the words even happen. So if your emotional signal is chaos, their response is withdrawal. Now here's the discipline shift. Before you speak, ask yourself one question. What problem am I solving for the listener? Not what you want to say. Not what you're thinking. Not what you're feeling. What problem are you solving? Because structure emerges from service. When you speak to serve clarity, rambling disappears naturally. Clarity equals safety. Now let's talk about repetition, because repetition is not redundancy. Repetition is reassurance. When leaders repeat core ideas, they're telling the brain, you're safe. You didn't miss anything. Ramblers repeat accidentally. Leaders repeat intentionally. That difference matters. One increases trust. The other drains it. Uncertainty is contagious. So is certainty. Here's your third behavioral instruction. If you cannot summarize your point in one sentence before you speak, you are not ready to speak. That's not a punishment. That's protection. Protection for the listener. Protection for your authority. Because the moment you start searching for meaning out loud, the brain hears danger. Clarity equals safety. Let's anchor this chapter. The brain is always scanning for order. Chaos equals danger. Rambling increases cognitive load. Cognitive load reduces trust. This is not opinion. This is biology. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. When you speak with structure, you calm the room. When you ramble, you agitate it. And calm always wins. You now understand why structure is not optional. It's not stylistic. It's physiological. Next, we go even deeper. Because once you understand how the brain reacts to chaos, you'll understand why powerful people always sound like they know exactly where they're going. You've learned why structure matters. Now let's talk about destination. Because authority is not about speed. It's about direction. Chapter 4. The CEO voice is calm because it knows where it's going. There's a reason powerful people sound calm. It's not because they're less emotional. It's not because they're naturally confident. It's not because they care less. They sound calm because their sentences have a destination. Calm is not a personality trait. Calm is a decision-making outcome. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. And when your voice knows where it's going, the listener's nervous system relaxes. People don't respond to what you say. They respond to the emotional signal you send before the words even happen. And nothing signals safety faster than direction. Now let's expose the real difference between leaders and ramblers. Ramblers discover ideas while speaking. Leaders decide before speaking. That's it. That's the split. Ramblers talk to think. Leaders think then talk. And the body of the listener can feel that difference instantly. Uncertainty is contagious. So is decisiveness. Decide then deliver. Say it again. Decide then deliver. When someone starts a sentence without knowing where it ends, the listener's brain braces. It leans forward internally. It prepares to work. It prepares to clean up the mess. But when someone speaks with a destination, the brain sits back because it knows it's being led. Clarity equals safety. This is why CEOs sound slow. This is why executives sound grounded. This is why leaders sound unbothered. They are not improvising meaning in real time. They are executing decisions. Now let's break a dangerous illusion. Many people think rambling is a sign of intelligence. They think, I'm processing complex ideas. No, you're processing out loud, and that transfers the cognitive burden to the listener. Remember, the brain hates unnecessary work. When you think out loud, the listener thinks for you, and authority disappears the moment. You make someone else carry your load. Decide, then deliver. Let's make this real. Imagine someone says, well, I think there are a few angles here, and maybe we could look at this from a couple of perspectives, because on one hand, you already feel it. No destination, no direction, no calm. Now imagine this. There are two issues that matter here. Cost and timing. The body relaxes. Same topic, different decision. The second speaker didn't discover the idea mid-sentence. They arrived with it. An arrival is authority. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. When your sentence wanders, their attention wanders. When your sentence knows where it's going, their nervous system follows. Decide, then deliver. Now let's talk about why this feels hard. Because deciding before you speak means giving up optionality. It means committing. It means risking being wrong. It means standing behind a position. Rambling protects you from that risk. If you never fully decide, you're never fully accountable. But here's the paradox. The attempt to protect yourself is exactly what costs you authority. Because leaders are not respected for being perfect. They are respected for being decisive. and decisiveness is calming. Uncertainty is contagious. So is certainty. Now let's talk about sentence-level behavior. Every sentence you speak should answer one question. Where is this going? If you can't answer that internally, don't speak yet. Pause. Decide. Then deliver. This pause is not hesitation. It's preparation. And preparation always sounds calm. Clarity equals safety. This is why executives pause before answering questions. They are not slow thinkers. They are disciplined thinkers. They refuse to let their mouth run faster than their mind. They know that speed without direction feels like panic, and panic is loud. Calm authority is quiet. Decide, then deliver. Let's anchor this deeper. Stories stick 22 times more than facts. But stories without destinations feel chaotic. A leader tells a story knowing the point before it begins. A rambler finds the point by accident. The listener can tell. And the nervous system always sides with the person who sounds intentional. Now here's the identity shift. You are not speaking to express yourself. You are speaking to move a state, to move understanding, to move clarity, to move decisions. And movement requires direction. This is why the CEO voice is calm. Not because it's soft, not because it's polished, because it is decided. Decide, then deliver. Now here's your fourth behavioral instruction. Before every important contribution, do this silently. Finish the sentence in your head. Not the wording, the destination. Know how it ends before it begins. If you can't see the ending, don't start the sentence. This single habit will change your presence. Because once your sentences have destinations, your tone slows naturally. Your pace settles naturally. Your authority appears effortlessly. Clarity equals safety. Let's bring it home. Ramblers sound anxious because they are navigating while moving. Leaders sound calm because the map is already set. People don't respond to what you say. They respond to the emotional signal you send before the words even happen. And the signal of calm authority is direction. You now understand why the CEO voice feels steady. It's not confidence. It's not charisma. It's decision. Decide, then deliver. Now we're ready for the core framework. Because once you understand destinations, you need a structure that guarantees. You never lose direction again. You've learned why leaders decide before they speak. Now it's time to install the system. That makes it automatic. Chapter 5, the 3-2-1 Rule, the skeleton of powerful speech. Everything you've learned so far leads to this. This is not a trick. This is not a technique. This is a skeleton. And skeletons matter because without one, everything collapses. The 3-2-1 rule is the structure that powerful speakers use instinctively, and average speakers ignore completely. Here it is. 3 points. 2 sentences each. 1 clear conclusion. That's it. Simple does not mean easy. Simple means disciplined. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. And the 3-2-1 rule stabilizes that physiology instantly. People don't respond to what you say. They respond to the emotional signal you send before the words even happen. And structure sends one dominant signal. Safety. Clarity equals safety. Let's break this down slowly. First, 3 points max. Why 3? Because the human brain cannot hold more. Without stress, 3 feels complete. 3 feels intentional. 3 feels decisive. 1 feels underdeveloped. 2 feels incomplete. 4 feels chaotic. 3 feels done. This is not opinion. This is biology. The brain groups information into chunks, and 3 is the largest chunk that still feels effortless. Anything beyond that increases cognitive load, and cognitive load reduces trust. Clarity equals safety. This is why great leaders say things like, there are 3 things that matter. Here are 3 priorities. These are the 3 risks. They are not limiting themselves. They are protecting the listener. If it doesn't fit the frame, it doesn't get spoken. Say it again. If it doesn't fit the frame, it doesn't get spoken. Now let's move to the second rule. 2 sentences each. This is where most people break. They think they need more room. They think they need to explain. They think they need to justify. They don't. 2 sentences force respect. Respect for the listener's time. Respect for the listener's energy. Respect for your own authority. 2 sentences say, I know what matters. I'm not searching. I'm not leaking. Ramblers hate this rule because it removes their safety net. Leaders love this rule because it creates calm. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. Long explanations tell the body, this will take effort. Short, complete thoughts tell the body, you're safe. Stay with me. Clarity equals safety. Now the third rule. 1 clear conclusion. This is where power lives. Ramblers fade out. Leaders land. A conclusion is not a summary. It's a decision. It tells the listener, this is what to remember. This is what matters. This is where we stop. Without a conclusion, the brain keeps working, and unfinished work feels stressful. This is why rambling conversations feel draining. There's no landing point. 1 conclusion closes the loop, and closed loops create relief. Relief creates trust. Clarity equals safety. Now let's look at the full structure together. 3 points. 2 sentences each. 1 clear conclusion. This mirrors exactly how the brain remembers information. Beginning, middle, end, frame, content, closure. This is not accidental. Stories stick 22 times more than facts because stories have structure. And the 3-2-1 rule turns everything you say into a mini story. Even technical ideas, even feedback, even conflict. If it doesn't fit the frame, it doesn't get spoken. Now let's expose the real reason people resist this. Because structure feels restrictive, and restriction feels like loss of expression. But here's the paradox. Structure doesn't limit expression. It amplifies it. Without structure, your best ideas drown. In your average ones, structure filters noise, and noise is the enemy of authority. Uncertainty is contagious. So is clarity. Now let's make this concrete. Imagine answering a question in a meeting. Without structure, you say, well, there are a lot of factors, and if we look at last quarter and also consider the market and one thing I've been thinking about, the brain checks out. With 3-2-1, you say, there are 3 factors driving this: market timing, cost pressure, and execution risk. Then you deliver 2 sentences on each. Then you land. Same information, different signal. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. The second version calms the room. The first agitates it. Clarity equals safety. Now here's the discipline that changes everything. Before you speak, silently ask, how many points am I about to make? If the answer is more than 3, you're not ready. Cut. Compress. Choose. Leadership is choosing what not to say. If it doesn't fit the frame, it doesn't get spoken. This is why powerful speakers feel intentional. They are not dumping thoughts. They are delivering decisions. Decide, then deliver. Now let's talk about what happens when you violate the frame. You add a 4th point. You add a 3rd sentence. You add a 2nd conclusion. The room feels it instantly. Energy drops. Attention scatters. Trust leaks. Not consciously, physiologically, because the brain had a map, and you broke it. Clarity equals safety. This is why consistency matters. When people learn your structure, they relax even faster. They know how to listen to you. Predictability is calming. Predictability is leadership. Now here's your 5th behavioral instruction. For the next 7 days, force everything important you say into 3-2-1. Emails, meetings, feedback, explanations. At first, it will feel tight. Then it will feel clean. Then it will feel powerful. Because once structure becomes habit, authority becomes automatic. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. And the 3-2-1 rule keeps that physiology regulated. Let's anchor this chapter. The 3-2-1 rule is the skeleton of powerful speech. 3 points prevent overload. 2 sentences enforce discipline. 1 conclusion creates closure. This mirrors how the brain remembers, processes, and trusts. If it doesn't fit the frame, it doesn't get spoken. You now have the structure. Next, we sharpen it. Because even within 3 points, there is a limit most people ignore. And crossing it quietly destroys authority. You've learned the skeleton. Now let's talk about the ceiling. Chapter 6. 3 is the limit of human authority. There is a line most people cross without realizing it. The moment they cross it, their authority drops. Not because they're wrong, not because they're unprepared, but because they added 1 point too many. 3 creates certainty. 4 creates doubt. Say it again. 3 creates certainty. 4 creates doubt. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. And the moment you move past 3, the nervous system tightens. People don't respond to what you say. They respond to the emotional signal you send before the words even happen. And 4 sends a very specific signal. Defensiveness. Let's be clear about this. When you add a 4th point, the listener doesn't think, wow, thorough. They think, why are they trying so hard? More than 3 points doesn't feel intelligent. It feels protective. It feels like you're trying to cover every angle. It feels like you're afraid of being challenged. It feels like you don't trust your own position. Uncertainty is contagious. 3 creates certainty. 4 creates doubt. Now let's ground this in the real world. Look at boardrooms. When a CEO presents a strategy, they don't say, here are 7 priorities. They say, these are the 3 things that matter. Why? Because executives understand this truth. Authority collapses under excess. When leaders present more than 3 priorities, teams don't feel informed. They feel overwhelmed. And overwhelmed people don't follow. They freeze. Clarity equals safety. Now look at courtrooms. The most persuasive attorneys do not overwhelm juries. They frame cases around 3 core arguments. Motive, means, opportunity. That's not coincidence. That's psychology. Jurors are not deciding facts. They're deciding coherence. 3 creates coherence. 4 creates confusion. 3 creates certainty. 4 creates doubt. Now look at political speeches. The speeches that move history are never laundry lists. They are built around 3 ideas: freedom, security, opportunity, justice, equality, progress. When politicians add too many talking points, they lose emotional gravity. The crowd disconnects because the brain can feel when someone is trying to win intellectually instead of led emotionally. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. And emotional leadership always beats intellectual excess. Now let's expose what really happens. When someone adds a 4th point, they start speaking faster. They start justifying. They start stacking explanations. The tone shifts. Not louder, not softer, tighter, defensive. The body hears that tone instantly. People don't respond to what you say. They respond to the emotional signal you send before the words even happen. And defensiveness sounds like doubt. Uncertainty is contagious. This is why highly intelligent people often sound less authoritative, not because they lack insight, but because they refuse to choose. Choosing 3 means letting go of the rest. And letting go feels risky. Because what if the 4th point matters? What if someone asks about it? What if you're challenged? So people overdeliver. And in doing so, they undercut themselves. 3 creates certainty. 4 creates doubt. Now let's talk about perception. Authority is not about being unchallengeable. It's about being anchored. Anchored speakers don't fear pushback. They welcome it, because their core position is stable. Ramblers fear interruption. Leaders invite it. Why? Because leaders have already decided. What matters most? Decide, then deliver. This is where the discipline deepens. 3 is not a suggestion. 3 is a boundary between clarity and chaos, a boundary between leadership and defense. Your job is not to show everything you know. Your job is to choose what the listener needs. Clarity equals safety. Now let's look at a common failure. Someone says, "I have 5 reasons." Immediately, the room braces. Energy drops. Attention fragments. Even before the reasons begin, authority is lost. Why? Because 5 sounds like work. 3 sounds like leadership. 3 creates certainty. 4 creates doubt. Now here's the hardest truth in this chapter. If you can't reduce your idea to 3 points, you don't understand it yet. That's not criticism. That's a diagnostic. Complexity is not depth. Complexity is often avoidance. Avoidance of commitment. Avoidance of hierarchy. Avoidance of decision. Leadership requires hierarchy. This matters more than that. This comes second. This can wait. Ramblers treat all ideas equally. Leaders rank them. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. Ranking ideas calms the listener. Dumping ideas stresses them. Clarity equals safety. Now here's your 6th behavioral instruction. Anytime you feel the urge to add a 4th point, stop. Ask yourself, what am I defending? Because the 4th point is usually fear talking. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being challenged. Fear of being incomplete. Authority doesn't eliminate those fears. It speaks despite them. Decide, then deliver. Let's anchor this chapter. 3 is the upper limit of human authority. More than 3 points. Does not add weight. It removes it. Boardrooms know this. Courtrooms know this. History proves this. 3 creates certainty. 4 creates doubt. You now know the limit. Next, we tighten the frame even further. Because within each of those 3 points, there is another discipline that separates leaders from ramblers. You've learned how many points you're allowed. Now let's talk about how long you're allowed to stay on each one. Chapter 7. 2 sentences force you to respect the listener. There is a reason this rule feels uncomfortable. Because it removes your safety blanket. 2 sentences. That's all you get. Not because you can't say more, but because saying more costs you power. Restraint is confidence. Say it again. Restraint is confidence. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. And restraint calms the nervous system. People don't respond to what you say. They respond to the emotional signal you send before the words even happen. Long explanations send one clear signal. Neediness. Not intellectually. Emotionally. They say, "Please understand me." They say, "Please agree with me." They say, "Please don't reject this." And neediness collapses authority. Uncertainty is contagious. Now let's be precise. Long explanations are not generosity. They are self-protection. They exist to prevent misunderstanding. They exist to preempt criticism. They exist to soften rejection. But here's the paradox. The more you try to prevent rejection, the less respect you receive. Because leaders don't beg to be understood. They state and wait. Restraint is confidence. Now think about someone you deeply respect. When they explain something, they don't overwork it. They say what matters. Then they stop. And that stopping point is powerful. It creates space. It creates weight. It creates choice. The listener can lean in, or ask a question, or reflect. That space is respect. Two sentences create sharpness. Sharpness is not aggression. Sharpness is clarity. It cuts away noise. It removes excess. It leaves only signal. Clarity equals safety. Now let's talk about emotional restraint. Emotional restraint is not emotional suppression. It's emotional containment. It's the ability to feel urgency without sounding frantic. It's the ability to care deeply without sounding desperate. And desperation always leaks through length. The longer the explanation, the more the body hears. I'm not sure this is enough. Restraint is confidence. Now let's expose the unconscious fear. People explain too much because they want approval. They want to be liked. They want to be seen as helpful. They want to avoid conflict. But authority does not come from being liked. It comes from being trusted. And trust is built through boundaries. Two sentences is a boundary. It says, I respect your intelligence. I respect your attention. I respect my own position. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. Boundaries regulate nervous systems. Now let's ground this with a real scenario. Imagine feedback. Rambling feedback sounds like this. I just wanted to mention something, and it's not a big deal, but maybe next time you could consider. The message is lost. Two-sentence feedback sounds like this. This needs to be tighter. Focus on the core message and cut the rest. Same intent, different power. The second version feels solid, contained, trustworthy. Restraint is confidence. Now let's talk about the internal discipline. Two sentences force you to choose. What matters most? What can be cut? What can be left unsaid? And what you leave unsaid often carries more weight than what you explain. Silence finishes the sentence. People don't respond to what you say. They respond to the emotional signal you send before the words even happen. When you stop cleanly, you signal certainty. When you trail off, you signal doubt. Uncertainty is contagious. Now let's address the fear directly. But what if they misunderstand? Good. Misunderstanding invites engagement. Over-explaining kills it. When you respect the listener enough to stop after two sentences, you give them room to respond. That's leadership. Now here's your seventh behavioral instruction. Every time you speak, count silently. One sentence. Two sentences. Stop, even if it feels unfinished. Especially if it feels unfinished. Because that feeling is the sound of restraint forming. Restraint is confidence. Over time, your nervous system will learn that nothing bad happens when you stop. In fact, the opposite happens. People lean in. They ask questions. They listen harder. Because you didn't drown the signal. Clarity equals safety. Let's anchor this chapter. Long explanations signal insecurity and a need for approval. Two sentences create sharpness and emotional restraint. Restraint is confidence. You now understand how length affects authority. Next, we talk about where authority truly lives. Because it's not in the middle of what you say. It's at the end. You've learned how to limit yourself. Now let's talk about how to land. Chapter 8. One conclusion is where power lives. Most people don't lose authority when they start speaking. They lose it when they don't stop. They fade out. They soften. They trail off. And in that trailing, power evaporates. Weak speakers trail off. Strong speakers land. Say it again. Weak speakers trail off. Strong speakers land. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. And how you end tells the nervous system everything it needs to know. People don't respond to what you say. They respond to the emotional signal you send before the words even happen. And especially to the signal you send at the end. Because endings create memory. Clarity equals safety. Now let's get brutally honest. Most people end sentences like they're asking permission. Their tone rises. Their energy leaks. Their certainty dissolves. It sounds like this. And yeah, that's kind of what I think. That upward inflection is not harmless. It tells the room, I'm not sure. I'm open to being corrected. I don't fully stand behind this. Uncertainty is contagious. Now contrast that with how CEOs speak. They don't lift their tone at the end. They drop it. Downward tone signals completion. Completion signals certainty. Certainty signals authority. End clean. Stop clean. Say it again. End clean. Stop clean. This is not about dominance. This is about containment. A clean ending closes the loop in the listener's brain. Open loops create tension. Closed loops create relief. And relief creates trust. Clarity equals safety. Now let's talk about why trailing off is so common. Because stopping feels risky. Stopping means exposure. Stopping means silence. Stopping means the room might respond. And response means judgment. So people hedge. They add qualifiers. They soften conclusions. They dilute impact. But here's the truth leaders understand. If you don't decide where your sentence ends, the listener will decide for you. And they will rarely choose in your favor. Weak speakers trail off. Strong speakers land. Now let's talk about sentence endings specifically. Every sentence has a terminal point. That terminal point should feel intentional, not accidental, not exhausted. When you land a sentence, your tone drops slightly, your pace slows, and you stop. No filler, no afterthought, no apology. End clean. Stop clean. This creates gravity. Gravity makes people lean in, not because you're loud, but because you're settled. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. A clean ending tells the body, you can relax now. Now let's ground this in real situations. Think about meetings. Someone presents an idea and ends with, so yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at. The room doesn't respond. Not because the idea was bad, but because there was nothing to respond to. Now imagine the same idea ending like this. That's the recommendation. Silence follows. But it's not awkward silence. It's loaded silence. That silence invites response. It invites respect. It invites decision. Weak speakers trail off. Strong speakers land. Now let's talk about vocal mechanics. Upward inflection evolved for questions. Downward inflection evolved for statements. When you raise your tone at the end, you turn statements into questions, even unconsciously. And questions ask for approval. Statements assume authority. Restraint is confidence. And confidence sounds downward. End clean. Stop clean. Now here's the deeper layer. Ending clean is not just about tone. It's about emotional discipline. It means trusting that what you said was enough. It means resisting the urge to add one more sentence, to protect yourself. That urge is fear. Fear of misunderstanding. Fear of disagreement. Fear of silence. Leadership is not the absence of fear. Leadership is the refusal to obey it. Decide, then deliver. And then stop. Now let's talk about memory. People remember endings more than middles. This is known as the recency effect. The last thing you say becomes the emotional aftertaste. If that aftertaste is confident, your entire message feels strong. If that aftertaste is uncertain, everything before it is contaminated. Uncertainty is contagious. This is why one conclusion matters. Not three, not two, one. One clear landing point. That tells the listener exactly what to hold. Clarity equals safety. Now here's your 8th behavioral instruction. Practice ending sentences early. Say the point. Drop your tone. Stop. Then resist the urge to explain the explanation. Let the silence work. Silence is not empty. Silence is authority settling. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. When you stop clean, you regulate the room. Now let's anchor this chapter. Weak speakers trail off. Strong speakers land. Authority lives at the end. Downward tone signals certainty. Clean stops create trust. End clean. Stop clean. You now know how to finish. Next, we go even deeper into the most misunderstood tool in communication. Because silence is not the absence of speech. It is part of the sentence. You've learned how to end your words. Now let's talk about what happens after the words. Chapter 9. Silence is part of the sentence. Most people think silence is empty. It's not. Silence is loaded. Silence is where authority actually shows up. Pause equals control. Say it again. Pause equals control. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. And silence is the button most people are afraid to press. People don't respond to what you say. They respond to the emotional signal you send before the words even happen, and to the space you leave after them. Because silence gives the nervous system time to catch up. Now let's clear a myth. Silence does not mean you forgot what to say. Silence does not mean you're unsure. Silence does not mean you're weak. Uncontrolled silence feels awkward. Chosen silence feels powerful. The difference is intention. Pause equals control. When you pause deliberately, you signal mastery. You signal that you are not rushing. You signal that you are not reactive. You signal that you are comfortable being seen. And comfort is authority. Now let's talk about perceived intelligence. People who pause are consistently rated as more intelligent, more confident, and more credible. Why? Because speed suggests urgency. Urgency suggests lack of preparation. Pauses suggest processing. Processing suggests depth. Depth creates trust. Clarity equals safety. This is why experienced leaders speak slower. Not because they think slower, because they decide faster. They already know what they want to say, so they allow space for it to land. Ramblers speak fast because they're searching. Leaders pause because they've arrived. Decide, then deliver. Pause equals control. Now let's talk about what happens in the listener's body. When you speak continuously, the listener has no time to integrate. Their brain stays in intake mode. When you pause, their brain switches to processing mode. That shift is critical. Processing is where meaning forms. Meaning is where influence happens. Silence gives your words time to sink in. Without silence, even brilliant insights evaporate. Uncertainty is contagious. So is overwhelm. Clarity equals safety. Now think about the speakers you remember. They didn't rush. They said something important. Then they waited. And that waiting made the moment feel heavy. That heaviness is gravity. Gravity is not volume. Gravity is space. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. Pauses slow heart rates. Pauses deepen breathing. Pauses signal regulation. And regulated people are trusted. Now let's talk about fear, because silence exposes fear fast. The fear of silence is the fear of judgment. When you stop talking, you are no longer controlling the narrative. You are allowing response. And response is vulnerability. So people fill the space. They say They say you know. They say so yeah. Those fillers are not habits. They are panic signals. Restraint is confidence. And silence is the ultimate restraint. Pause equals control. Now let's talk about strategic pauses. There are 3 places silence belongs. Before you speak. After a key point. After a conclusion. Before you speak, silence signals arrival. After a key point, silence signals importance. After a conclusion, silence signals completion. Most people skip all 3, and they wonder why they're ignored. Clarity equals safety. Now let's ground this with a real example. Imagine someone says, "This is the main risk." Then they pause. That pause tells the room, "This matters." Now imagine, "This is the main risk, and also we should consider." The risk disappears. Silence protects meaning. Weak speakers talk past their best points. Strong speakers guard them with silence. Pause equals control. Now let's talk about timing. Pauses don't need to be long. 1 beat is enough. 2 beats feels intentional. 3 beats feels commanding. Anything more becomes theatrical. This is not about drama. This is about discipline. Silence is a tool, not a performance. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. Used well, silence regulates. Used poorly, it confuses. Now here's your 9th behavioral instruction. Practice pausing even when it feels uncomfortable. Say the sentence. Stop. Breathe. Let the silence exist. Do not rescue it. Because the moment you stop rescuing silence, your authority stabilizes. People lean in. They wait. They listen. Not because you demanded attention, because you allowed space. Pause equals control. Now let's anchor this chapter. Silence is part of the sentence. Strategic pauses increase perceived intelligence and authority. Silence allows meaning to form. Silence gives your words time to land. Pause equals control. You now know how to speak. And just as importantly, you now know when not to speak. Next, we confront the real emotional driver behind rambling. Because technique alone is not enough. You've learned how silence creates power. Now let's talk about why people break this rule. When it matters most. Chapter 10, Over-explaining is a subconscious apology. Most people over-explain. They give examples. They clarify. They justify. They repeat. And it is almost never about clarity. It is about fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being judged. Over-explaining is a subconscious apology. Say it again. Over-explaining is a subconscious apology. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. When you over-explain, the body hears. I am unsure. I need your approval. Please don't reject me. Uncertainty is contagious. And when people hear that signal, authority collapses. You don't need permission to speak clearly. Say it again. You don't need permission to speak clearly. Let's be precise. Over-explaining is not intellectual generosity. It is emotional protection. It is a shield designed to prevent discomfort for yourself. The paradox? The more you try to prevent discomfort, the less respect you earn. Because people don't respect someone who begs to be understood. They respect someone who states it and stops. Restraint is confidence. And confidence communicates even before a word is processed. Now, let's examine the emotional root of this behavior. When we fear rejection, the brain triggers a survival response. Fight, flight, or talk excessively. Talking excessively feels safe. It feels like control. It feels like protection. But here's the reality. Protection through over-explanation is an illusion. It does not make the listener safer. It does not make your ideas stronger. It makes you weaker. Uncertainty is contagious. You don't need permission to speak clearly. Now let's see this in action. Imagine someone giving feedback. I think this might not work, and maybe we could adjust it, or perhaps try another approach, but I'm not sure, and also, the listener is overwhelmed. The idea is diluted. Authority is lost. Now imagine the same feedback with discipline. This needs to be tighter. Focus on the core message. Same content. Different effect. Authority intact. Over-explaining comes from the false belief that people won't understand unless you over-deliver. The truth, people understand far more than you give them credit for. Clarity equals safety. Now let's talk about social conditioning. Many of us have been rewarded for explaining more. Teachers, bosses, peers. Cover all the angles. Explain every detail. It worked until it didn't. Because covering all the angles does not equal authority. Authority is choosing what matters most. Authority is stopping when the point is made. Authority is trusting that your words land without padding. You don't need permission to speak clearly. Now let's get tactical. Here are the signals that you are over-explaining. You feel the urge to justify your point immediately. You catch yourself saying, "I just mean," or "I'm not sure, but." You add a second, third, or fourth example even though the first was enough. Every time you notice these signals, pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, does this need to be said, or am I protecting myself? Decide. Then deliver. Stop. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. When you stop apologizing with extra words, you regulate the room. When you over-explain, you signal uncertainty. Uncertainty is contagious. Now let's reinforce the behavioral instruction. For the next week, every time you feel the urge to over-explain, count silently. One sentence. Decide, is this critical? Stop. Do not add another sentence. Do not clarify. Do not justify. You don't need permission to speak clearly. Pause. Breathe. Land the thought. The nervous system will notice. People will notice. Authority will notice. Now let's anchor this chapter. Over-explaining is never about clarity. It is a subconscious apology. It leaks uncertainty. It undermines authority. You don't need permission to speak clearly. You don't need to justify your ideas. You don't need to defend your presence in the room. You only need the courage to state it and stop. Now that you understand the emotional root of rambling, you're ready to learn how the brain responds to order and why structure eliminates doubt entirely. Chapter 11. Speaking slowly is a power move. Most people think speaking fast makes them sound intelligent. It doesn't. It makes them sound anxious. It makes them sound defensive. It makes them sound like they are running from something. Slow is the signal of confidence. Slow is the signal of mastery. Slow is power. Say it again. Slow is smooth. Smooth is strong. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. When you speak quickly, the listener's nervous system tenses. Their heart rate increases. Their attention fractures. Their brain is scrambling to catch up. Uncertainty is contagious. When you speak slowly, the opposite happens. The nervous system relaxes. The brain leans in. The body trusts that you are in control. Slow is smooth. Smooth is strong. Now let's be clear. Slowness is not hesitation. Slowness is not indecision. Slowness is deliberate control. Leaders speak slowly because they decide before they speak. Ramblers speak quickly because they decide while speaking. Decide, then deliver. Every word matters. Every pause matters. Every syllable carries weight. Fast speech is like throwing bricks at a wall. The wall holds, but you create chaos around it. Slow speech is like placing bricks with care. The wall rises. It stands solid. It commands respect. Now let's anchor this with a real-world example. Think about politicians, CEOs, speakers you admire. They don't race through sentences. They pause. They breathe. They emphasize words. They land them with precision. Contrast that with a nervous manager explaining a new strategy. So basically we need to, implement this change. And I guess maybe we could try it this way and also consider. Fast, scattered, exhausting. Authority lost before the last word. Slow speech commands presence. It anchors your ideas. It creates gravity. Slow is smooth. Smooth is strong. Now let's talk about dominance without aggression. Speaking fast often feels like trying to force compliance. It's loud, rushed, and defensive. Speaking slowly communicates control without confrontation. It is dominant without threat. It is leadership without yelling. Authority is not volume. Authority is rhythm. Authority is pacing. Clarity equals safety. Now let's address the subconscious fear behind fast speech. People speak fast because they are afraid. Afraid the listener will interrupt. Afraid they will be challenged. Afraid they won't be heard. So they fill space with words. They rush. They overshare. Uncertainty is contagious. The moment you slow down, that fear is exposed. But exposure is freedom. Freedom is authority. Slow is smooth. Smooth is strong. Now here's your 11th behavioral instruction. Every time you speak, take a breath before the sentence. Speak deliberately. Pause between phrases. Resist the urge to rush to the next thought. Count silently if you must. 1, 2. Notice the difference in the listener's attention. Notice how your own confidence stabilizes. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. And slow speech regulates their system. It commands their focus. It signals mastery. Let's be practical. Fast speech wastes authority. Slow speech accumulates authority. Imagine presenting a key idea. Fast. So basically we need to implement this strategy quickly because the market is changing and I think maybe this could work. And slow. This strategy works. It addresses the market. It is essential. Let's execute. The second version lands. The first version disappears. Slow is smooth. Smooth is strong. Now let's reinforce the emotional layer. Speaking slowly forces self-discipline. It forces emotional regulation. It forces awareness of your nervous system. Every word becomes a tool. Every pause becomes leverage. Every sentence becomes a weapon of influence. Clarity equals safety. Now let's anchor this chapter. Fast speech triggers anxiety in listeners. Slowness communicates certainty and dominance without aggression. Slow is smooth. Smooth is strong. You now understand the rhythm of authority. Next, we combine rhythm with structure, so your words are not just slow but powerful. Chapter 12. How to use the 3-2-1 rule in meetings. Meetings are the battlefield of authority, and most people leave them powerless. They ramble. They hedge. They over-explain. They lose control before the first sentence finishes. You don't have to. The 3-2-1 rule is your weapon. 3 points max. 2 sentences each. 1 clear conclusion. Short answer. Clean close. Say it again. Short answer. Clean close. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. Now let's break it down for real meetings. Imagine someone asks you for an update. The typical response. Well, so we tried to implement the new system last week, and there were a few issues with integration. And then the team, was adjusting to the changes, and I think maybe we need to consider. Authority evaporates. Time is wasted. People check their phones. Now imagine using 3-2-1. The new system launched. 3 integrations failed. We fixed them. Everything is on track. Short answer. Clean close. Notice the difference. The first response triggers fatigue. The second response triggers respect. Now let's talk about interrupting your own ramble mid-sentence. Because even the best people slip. Your mind races. Your mouth outruns your plan. Here's the fix. Notice it. Pause. Reset. Say to yourself internally. Stop. 2 sentences. Land it. Then continue. Example. Original slip. I think, the Q2 projections, which, might be affected by. Reset mid-thought. Stop. 2 sentences. Land it. Corrected response. Q2 projections are on track. Revenue growth exceeds targets. Everything is aligned. Short answer. Clean close. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. Now let's examine why 3-2-1 works in meetings. Humans can only hold about 3 new ideas at a time. The listener's brain scans for order. Chaos triggers stress. Clarity equals safety. 3 points max. 2 sentences each. 1 conclusion. Short answer. Clean close. Let's talk about real-world examples. In boardrooms, CEOs use 3-2-1 constantly. 3 initiatives this quarter. 2 require immediate action. 1 is optional. We prioritize accordingly. Boom. Respect. Authority landed. In client calls, consultants use it to control perception. Our audit found 3 risks. 2 need immediate attention. 1 is long-term. Here's what to fix first. Short answer. Clean close. Now let's reinforce how to interrupt yourself internally. Every time you notice extra words, add an internal checkpoint. Am I over-explaining? Am I exceeding 3 points? Am I about to add a 4th sentence? Then stop. Reset. Deliver clean. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology. Pauses, restraint, and structure multiply your authority. Now let's combine pace with structure. Slow speech plus 3-2-1 equals unstoppable. Speak deliberately. Deliver only 3 points. Use 2 sentences per point. Land 1 clear conclusion. Short answer. Clean close. Now let's anchor this chapter. Exact examples of concise responses command respect. Interrupt your own ramble internally and reset mid-sentence. Short answer. Clean close. You now have the blueprint for meeting authority. Next, we move to the final frontier, how stories amplify all of this. Because structure alone is not enough. Stories stick. Stories persuade. Chapter 13. How to use the 3-2-1 rule in conflict. Conflict is the ultimate authority test. Most people fail it. They panic. They justify. They ramble. They lose control before they even finish a sentence. But you don't have to. You can win every conversation, even the heated ones. Here's how. Use structure. Use rhythm. Use the 3-2-1 rule. 3 points. 2 sentences each. 1 clear conclusion. Short answer. Clean close. Say it again. Short answer. Clean close. Your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's nervous system. And conflict is where that control is tested. Now let's break it down. Most people think conflict requires more words. Wrong. Conflict requires more structure, not less. When someone yells, interrupts, or challenges you, the brain goes into alarm mode. Your words matter less than your signal. Clarity equals safety. Say it with me. Structure is your shield. Here's the trick. Pause before answering. Notice your heartbeat. Notice the tension. Then deliver your 3 points. Example, a colleague attacks your project. Typical rambling response. Well, we tried to implement this last week, and maybe some things went wrong, but the team was adjusting, and I think, we could consider. Authority lost. Respect evaporated. Now, the 3-2-1 response. 3 issues arose. 2 were addressed immediately. 1 remains under review. Next step, full resolution by Friday. Short answer. Clean close. Boom. You control the room. Now let's talk about staying grounded. People escalate. Voices rise. Emotions flare. Your instinct might be to match it. Don't. Slow down. Pause. Breathe. Speak slower than the chaos. Your calm becomes their cue. Their nervous system follows yours. Slow is authority. Calm is control. Pause is power. Say it again. Calm structure wins chaos. Here's another trick. Interrupt your own ramble mid-sentence. Notice it. Pause. Reset. Say internally. 2 sentences. Land it. Example slip. I think, the client feedback, which, might affect. Reset. Stop. 2 sentences. Land it. Corrected response. Client feedback identified 3 concerns. 2 were resolved. 1 requires follow-up. We will act immediately. Short answer. Clean close. Conflict is your opportunity, not your trap. Every tense conversation is a chance to demonstrate leadership. Chaos tests you. Structure proves you. Your words don't just communicate, they anchor, they influence, they settle the room. Behavioral instructions. Pause drill. Before responding to conflict, take a slow, deliberate breath. Count silently. 1, 2. Then speak. Point 3-2-1 script prep. Identify the 3 points you need to land before the conversation. 2 sentences each. 1 conclusion. Memorize the skeleton. Mirror practice. Speak your conflict script to yourself. Pause. Land 1 conclusion. Observe how calm your body and voice feel. Your voice is not just communication. It's a signal. It's authority in motion. Short answer. Clean close. Now let's anchor this chapter. Conflict will test your voice. Chaos will test your brain. But structure is your shield. Calm structure wins chaos. Say it again. Calm structure wins chaos. Now go. Use it. Every conflict. Every heated word. Every tense conversation. 3 points. 2 sentences. 1 conclusion. Short answer. Clean close. You will never ramble in conflict again. Your words will land. Your presence will command. Your authority will multiply. Chapter 14. The Identity Shift. From Talker to Leader. Most people think leadership is learned in meetings, presentations, or by having the right answers. Most people think authority comes from knowledge or persuasion. Most people think respect is earned by explaining more, faster, or louder. Wrong. Leadership starts inside. Authority begins with your identity, your internal state, your decision-making framework, and the presence you carry into every conversation. Your voice is merely the signal. Your identity is the power behind it. Leaders speak from decisions, not thoughts. Talkers speak while they think. They hedge, over-explain, and seek approval mid-sentence. They reveal uncertainty. Leaders decide first. They understand their points, their priorities, and their desired outcome before opening their mouth. Their words carry weight because they are grounded in certainty. Decision first. Words second. Action third. Think about the people you admire in authority. CEOs, politicians, coaches, speakers. Notice how they pause before responding. Notice how they don't ramble. Notice how their sentences land like a hammer. They are not improvising. They are projecting the identity of someone whose words matter. Practical example. Manager 1. Well, I guess we could try implementing this strategy. If that's okay, maybe we can see what happens. Authority evaporates. People tune out. Decisions stall. Confidence erodes. Manager 2. We will implement this strategy. 2 steps first. 1 outcome expected. Let's execute. Respect lands. Action follows. Authority is visible. The difference is not in the words. It is in the identity behind them. One speaks from indecision, the other speaks from authority. Behavioral shifts to embed leadership. Decide before speaking. Before every conversation, know your 3 points, 2 sentences per point, and 1 conclusion. If you can't decide, don't speak yet. Decision precedes speech. Own your presence. Your body, your breathing, your posture all signal authority before you speak. Ground yourself. Feet planted. Spine straight. Breathing steady. Speak from that grounded state. Audit your internal dialogue. Rambling is rarely about content, it's fear. Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of being wrong. Leaders remove the question of approval. They speak from certainty, not permission. Anchor identity in language. Use declarative statements. Avoid I think, maybe, we could. Words shape your identity as much as your posture or tone. Every sentence is a statement of who you are. Practice micro-decision drills. In low-stakes situations, practice deciding first. 3 points. 2 sentences. 1 conclusion. Observe how your confidence and presence shift immediately. Your nervous system, your posture, your tone, all reinforce identity. Authority is not given, it is projected. The room feels it before your words finish. Leaders speak from decisions. Talkers speak from thoughts. Every sentence is either reinforcing the leader within you or exposing uncertainty. By embedding identity in every word, every pause, every conclusion, you no longer rely on tricks or style to create authority. Authority becomes who you are. Chapter 15. This is a daily discipline, not a trick. Most people believe influence, authority, and presence come from techniques or hacks. They believe they can sound like a leader by mimicking speech patterns, using certain words, or memorizing scripts. Wrong. Mastery comes from repetition, not inspiration. Influence comes from daily action, not occasional brilliance. Presence comes from practicing authority until it becomes automatic. Every sentence you speak is training. Every pause you take is practice. Every conclusion you land reinforces your identity as a leader. Step 1: Daily self-audit. At the end of every day, review your conversations. Did you speak from decisions or from thoughts? Did you stick to 3 points? 2 sentences per point. 1 conclusion. Or did you hesitate or over-explain? Notice patterns, not failures. Each observation is an opportunity to refine your presence. This is how leaders turn awareness into authority. Step 2: Micropractice in everyday life. Every interaction, no matter how small, is practice. Phone calls, emails, casual conversations. Before you speak, pause. Decide your points. Deliver them concisely. Close with intention. Authority is trained in ordinary moments, not only in boardrooms or stages. Practical example. An executive sends an email update. Week. Hi team, just wanted to give a quick update. We tried implementing the system, and there were a few issues, and maybe we could consider some changes. Strong. System update. 3 issues identified. 2 resolved. 1 under review. Next steps. Full resolution by Friday. The second version communicates decisiveness, clarity, and leadership. Every interaction builds the internal muscle of authority. Step 3: Mental reinforcement. Before every significant conversation, remind yourself, I speak from decisions, not thoughts. Every pause reinforces authority. Every conclusion lands my presence. Your identity becomes inseparable from your speech. Leadership is no longer a technique. It is who you are. Step 4: Compounding authority. Just like physical training, repetition compounds over time. A single day of practicing structure and pacing won't transform you, but a week, a month, a year of deliberate practice will. Every sentence is a deposit in your authority account. Every pause is interest accrued. Every conclusion compounds influence. Step 5: Guard against regression. Human nature resists discipline. Stress, fatigue, and habit will tempt you to ramble or hedge. Recognize it. Pause. Reset. Deliver intentionally. Every lapse is temporary. Every correction is permanent reinforcement. Final behavioral drill. Tomorrow and every day after. Pause before speaking. Decide your points. Deliver with structure. 3 points, 2 sentences each, 1 conclusion. Audit afterward. Adjust. Repeat. This is the daily discipline that transforms speech into authority. This is how identity becomes inescapable. This is how leaders are formed. Mastery is discipline. Discipline is identity. Identity is power. Every sentence you speak builds the leader you are becoming. Short answer. Clean close. In closing, you don't need better words. You need fewer of them. Because clarity is not about intelligence. It's about courage. The courage to stop explaining. The courage to pause. The courage to trust that what you said was enough. From this moment forward, every time you speak, remember this. 3 points. 2 sentences. 1 clean conclusion. No emotional leakage. No verbal wandering. No apologizing with extra words. When you speak with structure, people feel safe. When people feel safe, they listen. When they listen, your influence multiplies. This isn't about sounding like a CEO. It's about becoming someone whose presence settles the room. So here's your challenge. For the next 7 days, audit every important sentence you speak. Before you talk, decide your 3. While you talk, respect the 2. When you finish, land the 1. And when you feel the urge to keep going, stop. That pause, that's authority forming. Your voice is not just communication. It's a signal. And starting today, your signal is clear, calm, and decisive. Now go speak like it.